Hello guys and welcome to our regular scheduled program. So after the 10-year special we're going to go back to revisiting the drafts like we do each year, and we go 6 years back to 2016 to revisit the 2016 UDL prospect draft, which was the last draft for a couple of inaugural owners of the UDL. So after this, we had the first new wave of new owners. So we'll see that next year. But for now, we still are the basically the original group, and we'll see how we did in 2016. So 2016 was the draft of Austin Matthews, so basically the Austin Matthews year, and you see here the full draft list, and of course there will be a link in the description to the Google spreadsheet where I put all these revisit data. So basically you can scroll through and watch, see the data and see how how your team did or how others team did. I will not go into the details of all picks, and of course, other than Austin Matthews, also this nice guy was in the draft, and he was basically touted as the second best player. Even some thought. I remember that if I had the top overall pick, I might have went with Wayne. I was really hyped about him, and the comparisons that he might be the next Ovechkin was woo. That seemed really juicy for fantasy, but it turned out that Austin Matthews was basically in his own class. And a quick trivia or quick fact that there were from when doing this. This is the for what's this the fifth draft revisit that we have been doing. And in these 5 years, there are a total of 6 players that have cracked the point per game level at the time of this 6th year after their UDL draft. Can you guess which the six are? So the first 2 are quite easy. This is easy answer 1 and 2. The third one you see here in first place, we already mentioned it, but also his teammate Mitch Marner is another one. So we have 4 here, and the other 2 are Russians. So one of them is this guy. So also I think most of you would have guessed it. And the last one is also part of this 2016 draft, and is this young lad who doesn't look like this anymore, but imagine this picture around his draft season. Basically, Kirill Kaprizov is the 6th guy who has managed to average a point per game. So this is a pretty elite company. And but looking at this, you see 4 of the 6 most productive players of the last 6 years, or the first better part of the last 10 years, we can say that. So 4 of the 6 most productive players are members of 2 Canadian teams. So if those teams don't pull through and win some cups, I think there is definitely some issues with the management of those teams, and it's not the problem with the players. However, this is a tangent. We are not going to go on any more tangents, and we focus on the lists, the top 10 lists. The first we go to the best players of the draft. So basically, if we do a redraft, this is how the top 10 should go or would go. Of course, it's always debatable. The top 4 here are really strong. I think I don't know if we have another draft who has produced really 4 A+ players. The only reason I rank Fox and Kaprizov a little bit lower than Matthews and Tkachuk is because they have a lot less games played, and their totals are still low. And basically James had to wait 4 years to have Kaprizov, and Mark had to wait 3 years to have Fox, while Matthews and Tkachuk started contributing right away. And Tkachuk is really such a great multi-cat contributor that they don't make them like this anymore. And after those top four, which I think are close, okay, Matthews is pretty much top, but I think between Tkachuk, Fox, and Kaprizov is pretty close. And the next group are basically, I would say, from 5 to 9 again are pretty close, and you can rank them in a different way depending on how you feel. Just I want to mention that Charlie McAvoy, for me, I don't think he gets enough credit for the multi-cat he brings, because from this draft class, the 2016, Charlie McAvoy is top 5 in all of penalty minutes, hits, and block shots, and also he chips in quite good in terms of defenseman points. So he's really a very valuable asset in fantasy. And also a fun fact, I remember I offered Mike a trade which was Gensel for McAvoy's trade up, which was like in year 2 after this draft or something like this, and he wanted something more with Gensel, so the trade didn't go through. But I think this trade offer looks pretty fair with hindsight. So anyway, I think the top 9 are pretty clear. Then Dubois is a bit behind, but I think this is definitely a strong class. And if you're wondering, and if you don't remember, the color coding, the green names mean that they are still with their drafting team. So basically, McAvoy is still with the Aces, Line is still with the Blazers, and so on. And only Tkachuk and Aho have been traded, and Aho was traded quite recently to the Wanderers. So basically, he's a bit of a rental for them. While Tkachuk has spent most of his UDL career with Linköping, now the Red Bull franchise. So next we see the best value picks, which are the best picks outside of the top 2 rounds, so basically from the 3rd round onwards. And you will not be surprised by the top 2 names which we saw in the previous list, which are Fox and Gensel. But below, Jordan Kyrou is really the next best pick in the 5th round by Jay, really solid pick. And then after those 3 there is, I would say, a gap. And then the next positions 4 to 9 are solid picks, but really could be ranked either way. If you don't go by the recency bias when judging the Tage Thompson, because if you remember and if you look at his overall body of work so far, he has languished quite a bit in his first season. So basically he broke through last season, but his overall stats are not really that impressive. And here Danton Heinen makes the list because I didn't find anyone more impressive than that. And also notable here, the Blackwood and Peterson, 2 goalies picked in the 3rd round by Greg, and they are still the backbone of his goaltendings 6 years later. And the next top 10 is the dubious one. So basically the top 10 busts. So these are picks from the top 2 rounds of the draft that didn't pan out or didn't really fulfill their potential. And these are the top busts. Starting with Olli Juolevi, that was picked by the Flames. As he's in the real life, he's really one of the maybe worst picks of the last 10 years. Alex Nylander, here also Rubtsov. Elliott has two picks in the top 5. Not really a great draft for the Turtles. We see also here Vitaly Abramov and Riley Tufte. And you see here we have still two names with the green, which means Masherin and Logan Brown are still with their franchises, so with the Dubai and now the Solar Bears. And Masherin is actually now playing in the only professional league I have seen an actual game in person, the Austrian, which is now called the Ice Hockey League, which includes teams from Italy, Austria, Slovenia, Hungary, and one more country, I think. But it's not a top league, and Masherin is there, and Clint is still holding on to him. Yeah, the hope is strong, or maybe he has some extra farm slots. Anyway, jokes aside, we move on now to the overall numbers of the draft. But before that, a quick trivia question, like each season. Who would you guess has the most blocks from the 2016 class? It's a demon. It's a spoiler alert. We'll see the answer at the end of the slide. Looking at the age distribution, I think there's no great, not great difference compared to average. We did draft a bit younger in 2016, and we didn't draft any of the 27 plus age players. So basically, in 2016 we already drafted according to the current rules, which would limit us to the 26-year-olds. The draft pick performance round by round, which is basically the orange dotted line, is the, so to say, quality of the average first round, second round, and so on. And the blue line is the games played, which is basically the quantity. And what we can say is that you can see, for example, in the third round and the fifth round, the third round is basically Genso and Garland, and the fifth round is Adam Fox. So one or two players hitting in those later rounds could bring the points per game significantly above. But what I think is more notable, and is basically being confirmed throughout this series of draft revisits, is that the probability to hit, basically to have a NHL regular, which the blue line would suggest, the number of basically 8 NHL regulars from the first round to the second, and between the second and the fifth, the difference is really negligible. So basically, your chances of hitting on a player who will develop into an NHL regular is a lot closer between the fifth round and the second than the second and the first. So something food for thought when evaluating draft picks. And the where are they now chart is also pretty standard. Around 60% of the drafted players have managed to become NHL regulars. 20% still toil in the minors, and another 20% have already moved on to European leagues or other leagues, or have been. We have two retired players. One of them is Steven Jones, who I wanted to give a shout out, who actually was a pretty solid contributor until he was forced to retire with, I think, concussion issues. So the answer to the trivia, who has the most blocks from the class, it's this guy, Esa Lindell. And here the picture, the name of this photo was Lindell takes a slap shot from Sidney Crosby in the face or something like this. Basically, this is a common picture for those defensive defensemen who block a lot of shots, but they still push through. And another two facts from this draft: there were two teams who didn't have a single player, two NHL teams who didn't have a single player drafted in this draft, and those were the Rangers and the Capitals. Basically, this must have been some low point for their prospect pools, so we didn't like not a single prospect. And on the other end of the spectrum, the most picked players from this draft were 6 Boston prospects and 6 Flyers prospects. Just random facts of the day, I guess. And coming to the end and to the, I think, most interesting part of this video, how well did we do actually? How well did each of us do in this draft? So this is again the compiled to Roto table of different criterias. So based on the number of picks, the average draft position, the number of games played, regulars, and so on. This is the result, and basically the Aces and the Ramparts had the highest score. So basically, we can say that they had the best drafts of all. The Whoopi franchise, now the Solar Bears come and the Flames come close after, with the Ice Dice, Blazers, and Steelers also having solid drafts. And on the other end, the Turtles, Mighty Camels, Jackalopes, and Warriors had the least success. With notable also that the Royals only had one pick, and this was the third overall, and they selected JC Puyarvi. So not a great return. They probably would have hoped for a lot more from him until this point, but it's still not a complete write-off. Looking at the Aces class, just to put these results in names, the top 4 picks are definitely very solid, and all of them have developed very well. Logan Stanley is still basically coming along. He's a huge man, and these big players have take a little bit longer. Bergstrom is he had a lot of hype, and Clague, I think Clague could be in for a breakout season now with Montreal. Looking at their blue line, he could well be a top 4 defenseman this coming season. So he still, again, could be in for a breakout. And here, the names on the right, who is still with the team. The green means it's still a farm player. So basically, for the Aces, Kale Clague is still a farm player who would likely hit his EOC gameplay limit this season. So he's still years ahead. He has still years under control for the Aces. And this is the Ramparts class. 8 picks, 6 of which have developed into NHL players. The top 6 picks. But the most, I think, more interesting here is that none of them remain with the Ramparts, and basically all of them have been traded or dropped. And the first one to go was Sorokin, who was traded to the Sparta Warriors, who are now the Cape Breton Oilers. And Sorokin is a solid goaltender for them. And the last one standing was Sokolov, who was dropped by shortly after Vince took over management of the Ramparts. So none of these picks remain with the Ramparts. And on the other end, just to put the not so good draft of the Warriors in perspective, these were the 6 picks of the Warriors. Basically, not a single NHLer. Casey Nelson is in fact the second player who is retired out of this draft class already. I mean, retired in real life. And Adam Brooks is the only player of those who is still affiliated with the UDL team, as he is still in the farm system of the Sydney Millionaires. I must practice these new names. So basically that's it. This is how we did. You can look at the spreadsheet in the link below, and let me know if you find something interesting, and chat it up in the comments. Okay, so thank you and bye bye.